The kingdom didn't just fall, it was dismantled. Today, we uncover the billion-dollar betrayal of Toys R Us. For decades, it was the temple of childhood. But behind the bright colors lay a web of debt, bad deals, and a digital revolution that the king of toys never saw coming. This is the complete saga of the rise and the brutal fall of a global icon. Part 1. The Prophet of Play, the birth of a category killer. The story doesn't begin in a glass skyscraper or a fancy boardroom. It starts in a dusty bicycle repair shop in 1948. A young World War II veteran named Charles Lazarus was watching the world change. He noticed a chillingly brilliant psychological truth. Adults were fickle. They would stop buying new cars or jewelry during a recession, but they would never stop spending on their children. Lazarus started with baby furniture, but he soon noticed a recurring pattern. Parents would buy a crib once, but they came back every month begging for toys. He realized that toys were the perfect disposable commodity. They broke. Kids grew out of them, and the hunger for the next big thing was a bottomless pit. In 1957, he opened the first official Toys R Us. He didn't just build a store, he invented the category killer. Imagine the shock of a 1950s parent walking into a warehouse-sized building with aisles that felt miles long and shelves reaching the ceiling. It was the first toy supermarket. He created Geoffrey the Giraffe, a mascot that didn't just sell plastic. He sold a dream of eternal childhood. By the 1980s, Toys R Us was a global superpower, controlling 25% of the entire world's toy market. If your toy wasn't on their shelves, your company was effectively dead. They were the gatekeepers of joy, the cliffhanger. But as the empire expanded, the leadership began to suffer from a fatal disease: arrogance. They were so busy counting their billions that they didn't realize they were building a fortress with no exits. And while they slept, the wolves were already at the gate. Part 2. The arrogance of the giant. The first cracks at its peak, Toys R Us was an unstoppable juggernaut. They built an ecosystem that followed a human being from the cradle to the classroom. Babies R Us for your birth, Kids R Us for your clothes, and Toys R Us for your imagination. They felt invincible, but success became their cage. Because they were the kings, they stopped innovating. Their stores, once magical palaces of light and sound, began to feel like cold, neglected warehouses. The floors were dirty, the staff was overworked, and the magic was being replaced by a soulless corporate machine. While Lazarus's successors were playing golf, the retail landscape was undergoing a violent shift. Competitors like Walmart and Target weren't toy specialists, but they were smarter. They realized they could use toys as loss leaders. They would sell the hottest Barbie dolls or Lego sets at a massive loss, sometimes for half the price of Toys R Us, just to lure parents into their stores to buy high-margin items. Like electronics and groceries, Toys R Us, which only sold toys, had no defense. They were being bled dry by a price war they couldn't win. The cliffhanger, the leadership's refusal to adapt, was the first mistake. But the second mistake wasn't a choice, it was a kidnapping. In 2005, the company's fate was sealed in a secret boardroom meeting where the king of toys was sold to people who didn't care about toys at all. Part 3. The $6.6 billion noose, the debt trap. This is the part of the story that Wall Street doesn't want you to understand. In 2005, Toys R Us was struggling. Yes, but it was still profitable. It had millions in cash and a brand name that was pure gold. That's when the vultures arrived. 3 private equity firms, Bain Capital, KKR, and Vornado, decided to take the company private. This wasn't a regular purchase. It was a leveraged buyout LBO. Listen carefully, because this is how childhoods are murdered for profit. These firms bought Toys R Us for $6.6 billion, but they didn't use their own money. They borrowed the vast majority of it from banks. And then, in a move of pure corporate evil, they shifted that massive $6.6 billion debt onto the balance sheet of Toys R Us itself. Imagine you are a successful athlete, and someone buys your career by taking a massive loan in your name. And now you have to pay back the loan, while they take all your winnings. Overnight, Toys R Us became a debt slave. Every single year, they had to pay for $100 million to $500 million just in interest. That was money that could have rebuilt their website or modernized their stores. Instead, the company was being cannibalized from the inside by its own owners. The cliffhanger, as the company gasped for air under the weight of this debt, they made one final, desperate gambler deal with a young, rising predator called Amazon. It was a deal that would eventually lead to their digital execution. Part 4. The Amazon Betrayal, the Digital Funeral. In the year 2000, Toys R Us felt the internet was a threat they couldn't handle alone. In a moment of panic, they signed a 10-year exclusive deal with a then-young company called Amazon. Toys R Us would pay Amazon $50 million a year to be their sole toy provider. At the time, it seemed like a genius move, access to the world's best tech without building it. But they had invited a shark into their swimming pool. Jeff Bezos watched as Toys R Us funneled millions of loyal customers to Amazon's platform. Amazon gathered all the data. They saw exactly what kids wanted and what parents paid. Once Amazon had the data, they didn't need Toys R Us anymore. They began allowing other third-party sellers to list toys on the site, directly violating the contract. Toys R Us sued and eventually won a $51 million settlement, but the war was already lost. They had spent a decade building someone else's platform, while their own digital infrastructure was non-existent. When they finally launched their own website, it was clunky, slow, and years behind the competition. They had handed the keys of the toy kingdom to the man who was currently building their coffin. The cliffhanger. By 2017, the debt was suffocating them, their website was a ghost town, and the stores were falling apart. The King of Toys was about to enter the most brutal holiday season in human history. Part 5. The Final Liquidation, a Holiday Heartbreak. September 2017. The rumors started circulating Toys R Us was considering bankruptcy. In the retail world, rumors are as deadly as bullets. When the news broke, it triggered a death spiral. Suppliers like Lego, Mattel, and Hasbro got terrified. If a store goes bankrupt, the suppliers don't get paid. So, they stopped shipping the hot toys for the crucial Christmas season. When parents walked into Toys R Us in December 2017, they didn't see a winter wonderland. They saw empty shelves, flickering lights, and demoralized staff. It was a heartbreaking sight. Without the must-have toys of the year, the customers fled to Amazon and Walmart. The holiday season, and the only time of year the company actually made money, was a total massacre. In March 2018, the hammer fell. The lenders and owners couldn't agree on a rescue plan because the debt was too high. The announcement came: every single US store would be liquidated. 33,000 people were fired. We watched as the iconic Geoffrey the Giraffe statues were auctioned off for pennies. A company that had defined childhood for 3 generations was being sold for scrap metal. The cliffhanger. But was it just the internet that killed them? Or was it something much more sinister? As we look at the ruins of the toy empire, we have to ask, who's next? Part 6. The legacy of a vanished era. Why does the death of a toy store feel like a personal tragedy? Because Toys R Us wasn't just a business, it was a cultural temple. It represented a time when physical shopping was an event, a rite of passage for every child. Its fall is a stark warning about the era we live in now, an era where corporate greed and debt loading can destroy even the most beloved institutions. Toys R Us didn't die because children stopped playing with toys. They died because the people at the top stopped caring about the magic and started caring only about the margins. They traded the wonder of a child's eyes for the cold numbers of a creditor's spreadsheet. As I put the final strokes of paint on this canvas, I can almost hear the echoes of the Toys R Us kid jingle fading into the wind. The bright orange and blue signs are gone, and the aisles that once rang with the screams of excitement are now silent, empty shelves. But the memory of that magic is something that Wall Street can never liquidate. It lives on in us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the archives of our vanished era, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are on a mission to document the empires that time forgot. Now, tell me, what was that one toy you always searched for in those massive aisles? And do you think we will ever see a store like Toys R Us again? Let's talk in the comments. Until next time, keep looking back, because the past is the only place where the magic still remains.